Oh, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Collector's Vault, where cardboard is king. My name is Mike, and I want to talk to everyone today about getting your cards graded. Now, I've done this many times, talking about grading companies like PSA or BGS or Beckett grading, and those two are still to this day like the two big and most credible grading companies, not just for cards, but when it comes to getting collectibles authenticated, whether that be sports cards, non-sports cards, comic books, and etc. etc. Now, another one has popped up recently that has been really popular and apparently has been doing very good as far as grading. I haven't really heard much of many complaints regarding misgrades or the grades are just completely wrong or errors and stuff. If anything, they actually have been doing pretty good. And I'm not talking about some of those random these kind of things that you see in those random Walmart boxes. This is actually a company called CGC. I think it stands for let's see. I actually don't know what it stands for. Certified Guarantee Company. I don't think that's the best name, but CGC does specialize in I think primarily comic books, but they've just gotten into grading collectible trading cards, especially with Pokemon and Pokemon and Magic specifically. I'm not even sure if they're really that good with sports cards, because the reason is because when I went onto their site to see what their submission process was, I don't even think I saw sports cards as an option. So I'll have to look into that. But anyway, I want to talk to everyone about what companies should you be going with, which one is best, which one is worse. And to be honest, I really don't have an answer for what's best and worst. It's all very subjective, and it kind of whichever one fits your needs, and that also includes your financial needs, because some of them do grade at different rates. I've never graded at Beckett personally. I actually wouldn't mind giving them a shot, because I think the Beckett slabs don't really look as nice to me. Obviously, the black labels are pretty cool, but that's only if you get a pristine 10 for a card. But maybe it's just from personal preference, but I really do enjoy the PSA Slab. I kind of just think that one just looks I think it just looks very presentable. I think the white and the red's just very it's basic, but it's very appealing to look at. I've always liked their little hologram look. I don't know. I think it's just a good size. It's a good weight. Apparently, the Beckett grading slabs are much larger and they are heavier. I guess you can think of that as more quality and protection, but I mean, I don't know, to each their own. I just think that, personally, I'm a big fan of PSA. They're the ones I've only ever gotten my cards graded at. Now, CGC has popped up, I would say, over the last year, especially ever since the big, especially since COVID hit, and those, shockingly, the big surge in prices for Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Magic, down the line. But eventually, they also, shot in price too. So everyone was getting their cards graded. Pokemon also Pokemon definitely saw a huge resurgence with the base set, Charizard, all the Charizard hype, the base set box openings and everything, all these crazy record purchase numbers. But it basically was making a lot of people dig up the roll collections, sell the roll collections, or get a lot of cards graded. People who are first time graders, I guess. And hey, that's great. I would love to see more people get into this get into the hobby and learn more about getting your cards graded, getting them authenticated. Especially because there are a lot of people out there who are still, ignorant to what they have. I mean, I still see on social media, all the time, people are trying to, they're still, even to this day, trying to sell, their old Magic or their old Pokemon collection that they found in the attic, and it's oh, that's cool, but then when you look at them, they're all just either completely destroyed or they're clearly fake. And it's a shame, because then I just don't have the heart to tell these people that they're fake. And even if you do tell them, they don't want to hear it. But that's why, if they do decide to get the cards graded, then hey, you'll hear it from the professionals. They'll tell you, yes, this card is real or not. Here's what we think. This is what we think it grades as far as condition. Again, that part can be technically subjective. I want to believe that they are using computers now to especially with the centering and stuff. I think they're using computers to detect where the lines are, if they're askew, if they're if they're not equidistant, I guess. I'm not sure if they're using computers to actually scan the card for defects, scratches, indentations. Maybe someone, if anybody knows, please comment down below. I would love to learn more about that. But from what I understand, it is done individually by a person. It is done, you know, specifically from a person grading the card, and that's where the subjectivity can come into place. Where, you know, I've seen time and time again where a card might get a 10 when it's like, well, there's clearly a white dot on the back of this card, or this centering is clearly not perfect. I mean, whatever, it's just how it is. Now, back to CGC. During this whole, like, you know, uprise of popularity with collectible cards, I started realizing on, like, some of the more reputable, like, you know, Facebook groups that, you know, buy and sell and trade cards, that a lot of people were getting their cards graded with CGC. And when I saw that, I immediately thought it was one of these, like, random, like, I don't want to use the word knockoff, just the not the more well-known grading companies. And, you know, I guess admittedly I didn't know much about this company, so I did some research. And they are pretty reputable. Again, they are just now really getting into, like, the collectible cards. I mean, I'm not sure how long they've been grading cards, but they're more of a popular choice. The neat thing about CGC is I think they do have a really nice slab. I don't have one. I actually was hoping to buy one and show you guys, but I don't have one on me. But I'll have the picture, like, right here. So I think the slab actually look kind of nice. I like how they do have the, I think it's optional, similar to Beckett, where you can get the 4 subgrades either shown. I think it's always best to have them shown. Just, I don't know, people like that. Because if they're not shown, people can get a bit, like, weary, like, well, what is the centering? Whatever. PSA doesn't do that, and I'm fine with that, but it's like, if you wanted to go with the subgrades, you go with Beckett. Here's the thing with CGC, though, when it comes to the subgrades, is that has a lot of potential for making a card, you know, like exponentially more expensive or exponentially less expensive. The cool thing about PSA compared to things like Beckett and CGC was that when PSA grades a card, it's just on that 1 to 10 scale. And obviously, yeah, there are half grades and everything, which are, again, they're really rare. I only recently got a half grade back. That was kind of strange on my Dark Espeon, but because you don't actually know what the actual, like, subgrade is for all the main 4 categories, which is the surface condition, the centering, the corners, and the edges. Now, that means, let's say you get a 9. Well, I guess, for example, take this 9 Sky Ridge Raikou. It's a beautiful card, and I thought it was going to get a 10, but it got a 9. Again, I wish it got a 10, but I guess I really can't complain that it got a 9. The problem is, as I look at it, I'm not quite sure what gave it the 9. I mean, I personally, just from looking at it, I can definitely tell that there are like a little white speck on the back. It's like kind of like up here to the white speck here, a white speck here. So I would say, technically, this could have gotten like a. Well, it's funny, as far as like Beckett scales go, I would think, oh, this could probably get like a 9 or a 9.5 on the edges and the corners, because that's where I'm seeing some whitening, just those 2 little dots. So then that's where Beckett would average it and say, okay, well, if the centering is perfect and the surface is perfect, and they would be 10s, for example, at least I'm just speculating, and that would mean that the corners and the edges would score like a 9 or a 9.5. Technically, by BGS standards, and I think CGC follows the exact same standards with their subgrades, that would mean that if the lowest grade was a 9, like let's say because of that, they felt that white dot right here was bad enough to give the edges a 9, then that would mean that the highest grade I can get from BGS is a 9.5. You can only ever get your actual grade can only be 0.5 points higher than the lowest subgrade. So technically, if it's 10s straight across, it's a 10, obviously. Or if the number is the 4 of the same numbers, obviously it's going to be that grade. But if you have like 10s on three of the 4 subgrades, and then the one other subgrade is like an 8, it's an 8.5. It's not the average of those 3 numbers. It's an 8.5. Simple as that. So when it comes to PSA, this is kind of one of the things I like about PSA. I don't want to say it's that a lack of transparency. It's more of just that bit of mystery. Like, this card is average to be graded a 9. Now, I don't recall ever seeing a 9.5 PSA. Again, half grades do exist, but they're few and far between anymore. But that's kind of the big thing with BGS, because getting those perfect 10 subgrades is so difficult. A perfect 10, well, you can get like there's 2 versions of getting 10s in Beckett and CGC. There's 3 of your 4 subgrades have to be a 10, and 1 can be a 9.5. Because then technically, it does follow the standard that, well, the average is obviously very high in the 10s, so that's why it would be a 10, and 10 is 0.5 points higher than 9.5. So they would say if it's 3 10s and one 9.5, you have a gold label 10, and those are gorgeous, the gold label 10s. Or you can actually get all 10s, and then it's what they call like the pristine, perfect black label 10 on Beckett. Now CGC on the other hand does do something very similar, where they have little like they have like their like annotations where a card either like near mint, mint, gem mint. I think the word they're using is like is pristine, just like Beckett. So if you do get a 10, it's pristine. But if it's like the imperfect 10, where you have at least one 9.5 and 3 10s, it is I think it's called a pristine 10. If it's all 10s, I actually like how they changed they change the actual like the label to symbolize it's like this is their version of the black label 10, but they will say it's a perfect 10, and I kind of that's one thing I like about CGC, the perfect 10. So that's kind of that's one of the perks I think about CGC with their gradings, that they follow they're basically very similar to Beckett's grading standards. Obviously they still fall to the subjectivity, but like it's still basically the same grading standard, unlike PSA, which just simply takes what they believe is to be the grade. Again, I kind of just like that. It's just a simple 9. Then there's no arguing, well, is there like an 8.5 on the centering? Is there like 8.5 on, like, I would say, are people going to complain and say, oh, this is 8.5 edges? Look, the card is well enough to create a 9, and I'm cool with that. I kind of enjoy that simplicity of PSA. And PSA has been around for a very long time, so that's kind of where they get their reputation, I would say. So is Beckett. PSA has just been bigger. Now, here's one of the things with CGC they also have to consider. I would highly recommend you guys try it out. I've heard nothing but good things about their services. I've heard really good turnaround times. Now, compared to something like Beckett and PSA, I hear Beckett's turnaround times are still I've heard they're pretty much the same thing, where it might be like if you go with the standard servicing, it might be like a few months. Now, PSA on the other hand, I have to kind of be very honest here. If you don't have a membership with PSA, and I'm only saying this from personal experience, if you don't have a membership, the grading services have actually gone up tremendously. I think this is definitely a result of the popularity of card grading over the last year, and I'm sure obviously because of the pandemic and the mail services being as kind of hit and miss. I think that's another reason why their turnaround times have gone up slightly, and their grading services have now gone from the good standard of $20 a card to now $50 a card. And I'm sorry, that is a huge upcharge. Maybe upcharge isn't the right word, but you know what I'm saying. So if you wanted to get 20 cards graded, that was $400. That's a fair amount of money to go into this. If you're investing into your cards to want to get them back and graded and put in that slab. But when you go for 20 cards that are now $50, what is that, $1,000 now? Yeah, that's $1,000 to grade 20 cards. That's a lot of money to throw, especially for people who are casuals, who are finding their cards and want to just say, yeah, I want to send out some cards. Like, sending out 20 cards for $1,000, that's a lot. And that's also not including the amount of money you're putting into the shipping, into any insurances to make that. I would highly recommend you guys don't do like a simple priority mail to get there. Like, I'm not sure what they cover as far as insurances. I know you can increase your insurances, but like you gotta be that's the important thing, is making sure your cards will properly, safely get to PSA or whichever grading company you're doing. So I will give everyone a bit of caution that if you are not expecting to send your cards to PSA, for example, pretty often, like multiple times in a year, I'm not sure if it would benefit for you to get the membership. However, if you do get their membership, the cards are graded at a much more affordable price. If you're just like a first time grader, or you're just someone who doesn't have the membership, you're looking at about $50 a card now. Now, I'm not sure what CGC charges. I've been trying to look at their website, and I can't quite actually get that far without actually probably doing a submission. So I'm just I'll have to let some people down below comment, what does CGC charge for per trading card. And I'm saying like regardless of if you want, put down the membership cost and how much they charge per card with a membership, and then if you know, please put down below, because I want to know as well. What do they charge if you're just like a non-member trying to get cards graded there? If it's less than $50 a card, I would say that CGC might be the more affordable route. Now here's kind of like I would say the cons of CGC. Is because they're still relatively new when it comes to grading cards. I would say that people might actually look more towards the PSA grades and the Beckett grades compared to a CGC grade. And I think I saw on eBay before. I was trying to see if you can find some CGC graded cards that are actually cheaper than their PSA counterparts and the Beckett counterparts. And the cool thing is, especially with the Beckett cards, if they grade similar subgrades, you would think within the card should be pretty darn close to what a Beckett card would grade of those same subgrades. And ideally, or I should say, and in my experience, the Beckett grades have been much more expensive. I mean, like, I wouldn't say tremendously, but I would say they've been significantly more expensive than the CGC grades. And I think the same applies to PSA, where regardless of the subgrades, if a card grades a CGC 9, and then you compare that to a PSA 9, the CGC graded card has been not as expensive. I think it kind of follows very similar to with Beckett as well, because the thing with Beckett is like if a card grades higher than like a 9 or 9.5, that's kind of what you shoot for. Because I will admit that Beckett is very inconsistent, I think, when it comes to any card grades that are below a 9. And I'm sure my friend Jamie over at Casual Yugi Stuff, he knows that when he just recently sent out a bunch of cards to get graded by Beckett, he did not agree with a lot of the grades, and that's what I want to say. Like, Beckett is when you're shooting for that 9.5, their grading I think is pretty consistent. You know what a 9.5 looks like. I mean, you can still have your you can have your reasoning about why you think the card was graded incorrectly, but when it comes to cards that grade like a Beckett 7 or 8, they don't even compare to a PSA 7 and 8. PSA 7 and 8 like legit look like near mint cards, and I've seen Beckett 7 and 8s that have like much more weighting and much more horrible centering. It's just really weird how they how they average out their grading numbers, but. That's where it comes to. That's why PSA I think is pretty consistent across the board. But if you want to shoot for the most pristine cards, that's where you go for Beckett, and you shoot for that like the 9, more so the 9.5 and the 10s. But I would say the same would apply to CGC. If you want to shoot for those more pristine grades, you go for them because they show those subgrades. You know that this is like a legit. Well, according to CGC, this card got like 9.5s across the board, or it got some 10s in a 9.5. It makes the card more. I don't want to say it increases the authenticity of the grade. It just makes it seem like there's more credentials here. They're saying that like this is not just what we think is the grade. It's like, well, we think each of these points graded this high. Therefore, here's our ultimate grade. So, CGC does have that going for them. But again, because they're new, that's where you might be able to take advantage of it. But this is not for people who are wanting to get their cards graded. That's more for people who want to buy CGC graded cards. And therefore, I would say if you wanted to get your cards graded by CGC, you're technically looking at, well, unless if the result is like a Beckett like 9, like if the result is like an 8 or a 9 with those like random with those like very varying subgrades, the card's probably not going to be worth as much as just getting the card graded by PSA coming back an 8 as opposed to getting a CGC 8, if you know what I mean. So the other little con I would say about CGC is because they are still new. They are only like I'm actually kind of shocked they're not doing sports cards, but when it comes to their non-sports cards, that's all I saw as a selectable option on the submission form. They're only doing Pokemon and Magic, and I get it. Pokemon and Magic are obviously the biggest card games. I think they're the biggest non-sports card games. With Yu-Gi-Oh, I think like right there. Like Yu-Gi-Oh, I think is at any moment is just going to explode with like Legend of Blue Eyes cards going through the roof, and sealed Legend of Blue Eyes boxes being like $100 grand. I'm honestly shocked that they aren't worth that right now. It's probably gonna happen any moment, but who knows? So, unfortunately, if you want to get your Yu-Gi-Oh cards graded by CGC, I don't know if it's an option. Maybe I'm just computer illiterate and I don't know how to properly do the submission form on their website, but I was not able to see what a Yu-Gi-Oh card would grade. I was considering giving them a shot, but I have a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh cards I want to grade, and I just can't do it on CGC. One little thing that's kind of neat is that with PSA, again, I can't speak for BGS, but for PSA, they have all the cards like listed in their database. So it's kind of like a filtering system where you can kind of say, here's a card I want to get graded, and then you find it on this giant selection sheet. which again is filtered depending on what you type in. For CGC exam, they have multiple fields where you can actually type in, okay, this is for example, this is a Black Lotus. It is from the beta set, and and you kind of just go down the line and start filling in all these different cells, and it'll say, okay, we know the card you're going to get graded. One thing was really neat is that they actually acknowledge errors. PSA does have a little comment section. I guess if you want to comment, say, yeah, this actually is an error card for some reason. But CGC, I think, is kind of neat. They do have a little additional box. I think it's like a checkbox saying, is there an error on this card that you want us to identify? I'm not sure if they're referring to like a printing error or like a factory error, or is it like a very common error, kind of like, oh, this is the red dot Blastoise, or is this more like, whoa, like this card was printed horribly off center to the point where like I see another card on the sequential card on the cut sheet is on my card. I'm not even sure how that would grade actually. I'm sure they would just be that this card is obviously nowhere near like. This card is nowhere near like an 8 or 9 or 10 because the centering is off. But the point is, I think it's kind of neat that they actually allow you to know these. They let you acknowledge errors on their grading services. So again, I think they're definitely worth giving it a shot. If you're looking to get your cards graded, I would say definitely go for PSA and Beckett for the more reputable companies. But I think CGC has a lot going for it. I think it definitely has a good future. And I do wish them the best of luck when it comes to their card grading and growing that market for them. I really hope they do allow people to start grading Yu-Gi-Oh cards, because then maybe I'll definitely give them a shot next time, especially if they are more affordable. Again, with if you have memberships with these companies, you can get the grading cost to be less. But again, I'm not sure what the prices are for CGC. I'm not sure what the prices are for Beckett. If you guys know, please comment down below. And yeah, I think that's all I really want to talk about today. Just wanted to let you guys know about the grading community right now. How it really is flourishing. We're getting like a new competitor in the grading world. Kind of reminds me of the whole triad of like Nintendo and Microsoft and Sony when it comes to video games. Now we have the triad for grading with CGC, Beckett, and PSA. It's kind of interesting. So yeah. Thanks again for watching, guys. If you guys do like the video, I would really appreciate it if you guys can just leave a comment down below. Even if you're just saying hi, it really means a lot to me. I love answering your questions. Also, if you don't mind, like this video. If you're not a subscriber already, I mean, I would really like to eat this month. So if you could subscribe to this channel and hit that little notification bell, I can finally have some food besides ramen noodles. I'm getting really sick of ramen noodles. But yeah, guys, again, thanks again for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.